Okay, this is the final video for section 5.3. So if you would go all the way down to the end of this set of notes, all the way to where we're going to talk about calculator approximations. So what you want to do here is make sure that you have your calculator out. I'll be walking you through the TI 83 or 84, but you can really use a scientific calculator or a graphing calculator. Either one will work well. One of the things that you want to pay attention to is when you are evaluating trig functions, make sure you pay attention to the mode of the calculator. So in this case, we're only going to be dealing with degrees, so you want to make sure that you are in degree mode. The way that you change your mode on the TI 83 or 84, if you will look at seconds, and then find that mode button. It's right there next to the second button. And then you'll notice if you'll go down, it's 3 or 4 lines, depending on which calculator you have. You'll be given the option for either degrees or radians. You just want to push enter on degrees. And for this particular set of questions that we're doing. All right, so for example 8 then, we are finding function values with a calculator, so we're going to approximate. You already know how to type in degrees and minutes, so that's not part of this lesson in this video. That was in a previous video. So go ahead and just push the tangent button, push 68 degrees, 43 minutes. Pause the video if you need to try to do that. And what you should end up getting is this long decimal, so 2.56707.352. To get letter B, same idea, only this is not in degrees and minutes. This is just in decimal degrees. And so my cosine, just type in cosine, use your cosine button, 193.622. You don't need to enter in the degree symbol. And what you should get here is negative 0.97187.064. All right, part C gets a little bit more challenging because with part C, you don't have a cosecant button. So here's where we're going to be using our reciprocal identities. We know that cosine of an angle is the same thing as 1 over sine of that same angle. So that's the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use reciprocal identities and rewrite the cosecant. And so now I can use my calculator. So in the calculator, I'm going to type in 1 divided by sine of 35.8471. And again, you don't have to type in that degree symbol. When you do this, you should get the decimal 1.707.57967. Same concept with secant. We know that according to our reciprocal identities, secant of negative 287 degrees is the same thing as 1 over the cosine of negative 287 degrees. This is what I'll type into my calculator. And so once I type in 1 divided by cosine of negative 287, this is going to give me 3.42030362. Now, one of the things that you'll notice on your calculator, maybe you even tried to use this and it didn't work, was that sine -1 button. Please understand the sine -1 is not the same thing as cosecant. If you tried it out, you realize that you are not getting the same answers that I was getting. Sine -1 is actually called sine inverse. And so what we have here is if you ever want to find an angle, your angle is unknown, you can use inverses to do this. Inverses find angles. So that's a big deal. So if we go down to example number 9, we're asked to find an angle. Okay, so since this is a calculator question, we're going to be using inverses. So find an angle from 0 to 90 degrees that satisfies the following condition. So notice in part A, I have the cosine of my theta is equal to some long drawn out decimal. If I want to find my theta, I'm going to use my cosine inverse, and I'm going to take the cosine inverse of that ugly decimal that we had there. All right, so this is going to be cosine inverse of that 0.92118541. So in your calculator now, push second cosine, and then type in that long decimal. And what you'll get is an angle. That angle happens to be in the first quadrant, which is good because our directions told us it needed to be between 0 and 90. And it ends up being 22.899999 degrees. If we go over to part B, we run into an issue because the first thing is that I can't use the cotangent inverse button because I don't even have a cotangent button. So the steps for doing this, and it's going to be the same set of steps if you're working with cosecant or secant. And the first thing you want to do is use your reciprocal identities to rewrite this. So we know that if cotangent is equal to some ugly decimal, tangent is going to be the reciprocal of that ugly decimal. And so these two are reciprocals of each other. So I'm just using the reciprocal identities to be able to do this. Since I have a tangent and a tangent inverse button, now all I need to do is to enter in the tangent inverse of that fraction that we had there. So ugly fraction. So you're going to type into your calculator second tangent and then type in the fraction 1 divided by that ugly decimal. Go ahead then and push enter, and you should get, once again, it's a degree measure. It is in the first quadrant between 0 and 90 degrees at 34.654,300 degrees. And that wraps up all of the videos for this particular section. Stay tuned for more videos from this chapter.